out that we're being electronically front-run. That was a huge problem to me.
The idea of hardworking people's retirement savings feeding these financial predators was deeply unsettling to Brad. He had a duty to protect his clients from being preyed upon, but solving the problem wouldn't be so simple. The first idea was to just speed everything up, get as fast as the firms abusing this, but Ronan Ryan quickly shot down that idea. They were RBC after all, they would never be faster.
There were things that his clients were doing that we would never do. A funny story is that also proximity, where you're located in the data center. So now that I've paid to be in the data center, where you are in the data center matters. And he said that next to one of the big stock exchanges, Toys R Us actually owned a cabinet next to one of the big stock exchanges by accident. They were there, I think they were probably running their website or something like that from there. And he said he was working on behalf of clients trying to pay Toys R Us insane amounts of money, and they finally gave in. They finally sold their space, and they wanted to leave Toys R Us as the identifier on the cage because they didn't want anyone to know who was in the cage. Proximity matters, and they spent a ton of money on that. He said we cannot be faster than them.
It's at this point, with his team in place, Brad persuaded his boss at RBC to allow them to conduct a series of experiments. For the next several months, he and his new team would trade stocks not to make money, but to test theories. RBC agreed to let his team lose up to $10,000 a day, making these trades just to collect information that might be helpful. And all of this was generating a mountain of data. They weren't just combing through their own trades, they were combing through the millions of trades that high-frequency firms were placing every single day, trying to get tick-level precision to understand what was happening, and more importantly, a way to beat it. Most nights, Brad would go home brain buzzing, unable to sleep. But then, an elegant solution emerged. Instead of trying to beat the high-frequency speed demons, Brad's team realized they could just take the opposite approach and try to slow things down. The idea was simple. They would create an order router that would take into account the arrival times of order requests at different stock exchanges, then stagger the sending of those messages so they all arrive to different exchanges at the same time. However, that would mean rethinking the entire concept of an order router and conducting a complete overhaul of how RBC trades were processed in the first place, with the team needing to create a sophisticated algorithm to predict and synchronize the arrival times of the ones and zeros beaming across the miles of cable to get to these various exchanges, factoring in things like network latency and the unique characteristics of each exchange's infrastructure in real time, something impervious to any changes these exchanges would make in the future. Now, if you're a tech nerd like me, you're thinking, oh man, you could do a simple ping command or a trace route, but I promise you, I looked into this, it's so much more complicated than that. There's some really impressive math to calculate latency in real time in a system like this. So, you know, who are they going to task with building a system like this? It's going to take an impressive programmer, and luckily for Brad, he had just the guy. Alan Zhang, the most talented programmer at RBC. Brad went to him and said, hey man, you want to solve a really big problem? And he did. He built the minimal viable product, a software solution to prove that it was at least possible to synchronize these order requests with enough tolerance that the high-frequency trading firms wouldn't be able to front-run their orders. Testing was relentless. Even the smallest margin of error could cost millions of dollars to them and their clients. During this development phase, the button to send an order was labeled Thor to tell it apart from the normal order button. And so every trader that was testing this got used to calling it Thor. Ready to place a big market order? Thor it. It was counterintuitive. Everyone wanted to go faster, but slowing things down, it worked. Normally, when you hit the button to place a stock purchase order, but failed to get the full amount of stock, the screen would light up red. As you know, that had become Brad's reality for the last many years. But when he thored it, the screen lit up green. It meant that he got all of the stock they were trying to purchase. High-frequency trading firms were no longer able to front-run their trades. He was overjoyed. And funny enough, the name stuck. When the solution was ready for deployment to actual clients, Thor became the official name of the tool. They even came up with a cute acronym, Tactical Hybrid Order Router, to make it more fitting.
This was the easiest product in the world to sell. I'd walk into any asset manager out there and I'd say, you want to buy Bank of America, you see 2 million shares in the offer, how much of that do you get? People would say anything from 500,000 to 1 million shares. And I said, I'll get you all 2 million. And they would say, give me the product. Product actually it took RBC from 19 to number 1 in the Greenwich Associates survey in 1 year. It was a $100 million product in less than 18 months. The problem was clients couldn't just trade with RBC. One of my closest clients put it to me brilliantly. He said, Brad, you've solved 2% of my trading problem. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, 2% is the amount of trades that I can actually send to RBC. He's like, what about the other 98% of my trading issues?
While Thor was a huge success for Brad and RBC, he realized in the grand scheme, it made only a small difference. High-frequency trading firms had grown huge and fast. By 2010, they accounted for a majority of the market's trading volume, often cited at over 50%. Their influence extended so deep that exchanges began tailoring their offering to attract them, granting benefits like special order types, access to private dark pools, and liquidity provision rewards. Brad had come to learn that the core business model of stock exchanges was shifting. It wasn't about facilitating trading anymore, but facilitating faster data to the highest bidder.
Exchanges collectively in the United States pay $3 billion plus in what are called rebates. This is like figuring out that the electricity company pays you to turn your lights on. It was something that just completely baffled me when I learned it, but they're paying people billions of dollars to trade, which means they don't actually make money from trading anymore, which is why they open data centers to sell people access, to sell people technology, to sell people cabling. They've even gone as far to put microwave towers on the roof of the exchanges to beam orders back and forth faster, because all of this really adds up to the 476 microseconds that Ronan needed to beat me. It's being sold to him and his clients by the stock exchanges. The stock exchanges were enabling the issue that I just explained to you. A stock exchange exists to help companies raise capital, to help investors allocate that capital. They do not exist to sell this stuff. But why do they do it? So first of all, they sell fast data. If you want to learn about the changing of a price faster than someone else, you have to pay for it. If you think about it theoretically though, there isn't anything technically wrong with someone getting data before someone else, because there's no way to ensure that everyone gets it at the same time. If I broadcast a signal from this stage, everyone in this room will get it first. Maybe someone in the front row will actually get it technically before someone in the back. Definitely before someone in New York will get it, or someone in San Francisco will get it. There's no way to ensure everyone gets data at exactly the same time. The problem is, the person with advanced information, how do they monetize the information? They monetize it by trading against someone who doesn't yet have it.
Things were getting further and further away from the world of fundamental trading that Brad knew and loved. These new incentives offered by modern stock exchanges were often touted as beneficial for providing liquidity and improving market efficiency, but Brad understood the ugly truth, and he hated it. The thing is, this stuff was all playing well within the rules of the SEC. It helped that high-frequency trading firms were lobbying regulators, but nevertheless, the exchanges remained complicit. They were playing within the rules after all, incentivizing and profiting off providing ways to get faster data. This all led Brad to realize that even with Thor's triumph, he couldn't fix the issue. He began questioning the fairness of the financial system itself, started dreaming of a way that he could level the playing field for everyone. It had to be him. He would often have conversations with his friends from Silicon Valley that come from big tech startups about disrupting the way that stock exchanges are run. But they would get scared away because of all the SEC regulations and how hard it is to get any of those changed. Brad knew if he was going to make a difference, he would have to find a way to use the rules against them to level the playing field, just as he had done with Thor. But he had another problem. Very few people even knew what these high-frequency trading firms were doing. But come May 2010, that was about to change because the financial world was going to learn the hard way. And speaking of using data to get an edge over someone, let's talk about today's sponsor, Incogni. So I've been using Incogni for more than 8 months now, and during this time, they've removed my information from more data brokers than I can count. That's those nasty scallywags that have been collecting phone numbers, names, addresses, relatives, medical conditions. Crap, some of them are even getting social insurance numbers and then selling it to the highest bidder. People that want to spam my phone number, send me junk mail, or help people stalk me. Seriously. Brad and RBC had discovered the exploit, built Thor, and shielded their own clients. Yet, outside the walls of RBC, the broader market was still blind to just how dangerous unchecked speed trading could be. That ignorance was about to vanish though, because come May 6, 2010, the entire market was about to be launched into chaos in what will become known as the flash crash.
Everyone else is watching, and they're seeing these big negative numbers, and their confidence gets affected.
What the heck is going on down here? This is capitulation, really.
There's some important context here. Turmoil had been building in the markets because of the European sovereign debt crisis. Investors were fearing Greece's financial stability was about to collapse, that they would default on their debt, which could spark other heavily indebted European nations to do the same. This had been building since 2009, but come May 2nd, 2010, Greece formally requested a bailout. a package to the tune of 110 billion euros. This might sound unimportant, but what it did is it led to increased trading activity and general market instability as concerned traders and institutions began adjusting their portfolios away from European assets to buy things deemed safe from this possible conflict. In other words, during this week of May, there was a lot of big money worried about losing their butts, moving their money around, watching the markets closely. 9:30 a.m. as the opening bells ring on Wall Street, the main stock indices begin to drop.
30 minutes since the markets dropped.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped more than 900 points.
US stock market and futures markets just crashed.
Indices are like a scorecard, by the way. They measure how a large group of important companies are performing. And all the investors already worried about this debt crisis see this, and some of them start offloading their own holdings.
All of a sudden here, we started hearing screaming, buy, buy.
But by 2:30 p.m., things were about to get a lot worse. A large mutual fund, later identified as Waddell & Reed, decided to initiate a large sell order to hedge against this market decline. They make a request to sell 75,000 E-mini S&P 500 future contracts worth approximately $4.1 billion. Unbeknownst to them, a small flaw in their trading algorithm was about to bring Armageddon to the markets. See, their software was programmed to sell these contracts at a rate of 9% of the market's trading volume until it got rid of all 75,000, no matter how the market price or conditions changed. I know that sounds confusing, but stick with me. This means that an entire extra 9% of the market volume will be pushing the price downwards for the next few minutes. It might not sound like a lot, but in reality, it's actually an insane amount of downwards price pressure. But it was about to get a whole lot worse. Because instantly, high-frequency traders detected Waddell & Reed's sell order and began to trade rapidly between themselves, buying and selling future contracts within milliseconds. Much like a nuclear reactor gone bad, this is the moment that the markets became uncontrolled. With these firms rapidly passing the contracts amongst themselves, trying to get ahead of Waddell & Reed, it amplified the trading volume without providing any additional liquidity. It's like a group of kids tossing the same ball around in the circle. It looks busy, but no one knew was actually getting the ball. Waddell & Reed's algorithm didn't understand that. They just saw an increase in the market trading volume. And likewise, their algorithm increased the selling quantity, further making the price plummet faster. And as the price continued to fall even further, many liquidity providers and high-frequency trading firms started withdrawing from the market altogether to mitigate their risk. However, the mutual fund's algorithm continued to sell aggressively, still unresponsive to the change in price. This combination of aggressive selling and reduced liquidity created a feedback loop, causing the prices to plummet further. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged nearly 1,000 points, about a 9% drop within minutes. And then other individual stocks start experiencing extreme volatility with all the panic. Some dropped to as low as a penny, and others spiked to over 100,000 due to erratic trading. It's hard to convey the shock on traders this day. It felt like the financial market was collapsing before their very eyes. Circuit breakers, finally realizing that this was a technical issue, paused trading from many securities, giving those algorithms a moment to reassess. Human traders, now with a moment to breathe, are spotting the bizarre prices, shares trading for a fraction of their true value, and begin buying them up. And by the time the stock market closed at 4 p.m., well, most of the stocks had bounced back up to where they were before. Still,